Hello and welcome to TechNow, the web series for ServiceNow admins, builders, and developers on a variety of Now Platform topics. Thank you for joining us. I am here this feels like the World Cup or the Super Bowl. This is one of the big ones of the year. This is our New York Platform features, which will be available in general availability on September 5th, 2019. So, depending on when you're watching that, it may have already happened. My name is Chuck Tomasi from ServiceNow. I'm the Senior TPMM. I work with the customers, I work with the product managers. I do a lot of cool stuff to bring you this kind of information and more. So I've been a customer for a couple of years, well over 10 years ago, and got my chops on the platform doing implementations. Came over to ServiceNow in 2010, was technical consultant, did pre-sales, some enablement, all kinds of different stuff. That led me to where I am now. I have a number of other series of videos I encourage you to watch for your growth and entertainment. And because we have so much content, I'm going to leave it at that and introduce Craig Stepp.
Hello, everybody. I'm Craig Stepp, and I'm a senior project manager for a project owner, really, of Cloud Labs, which handles a lot of the instances and stuff that you see when you take classes at ServiceNow. Whether it be at Knowledge or any of our other events that we have, Snugs, that kind of thing, where we have workshops. Like you'll see, a lot of my back-end work bring that stuff to you. I specialize in cloud automation, and I've been at ServiceNow since 2014, and I blame Chuck for bringing me over. But actually, it's been a great experience, and I love it here.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. So my prior experiences, I've done a lot of orchestration and, like I said, cloud automation, a lot of programming in my past. And I've been, a host on TechNow for, since 2016. So it's been a little while now. And I love podcasting, photography, analytics, not necessarily in that order, and you can mix and match. It's just fun. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Max.
Hi, I'm Max. I'm actually the newbie here, so this is my kind of second or third webinar, so be patient with me. I am part of the SC development internal group, and we build a lot of our Now applications for our actual company to use. I was a customer of ServiceNow since Berlin. I think that was the version I was on. So really familiar and love the product and been using it for a while. So with that, I'm going to switch over back to Chuck.
No, I think Craig's got this part.
Yeah, so
Craig.
Yeah,
I'm still in the green room warming up.
Yeah, that's all right. So today's agenda, we're actually going to be looking at New York platform features. So there's going to be a lot of stuff to cover in the next hour, and so brace yourselves. And of course, along the way, we'll have to do some Q&A and some Q&A at the end. So, if you didn't get a chance to go to Knowledge last year, guess what? You get a chance to do it again. So I want to thank you for having a great Knowledge 2019, and it was a lot of people there and a lot of information going around. So be sure to save the date if you want to participate for next year. It's in May 3rd through the 7th. It's going to be in Orlando this year, which it was a lot of fun when we were in Orlando previously, so I look forward to that again. Be sure to go over to knowledge.servicenow.com, and there's a video library with a lot of videos and from the keynotes and presentations that were at Knowledge, so you can kind of catch up on some of the things that they may have missed if you weren't there. So again, it's a great place to go network with others, learn about the platform, and just general networking, just meet other people. So when you want to meet other people, you also talk about things that you're trying to do, maybe with ServiceNow in your own company. And that's where, for what you don't get at Knowledge, you can get here at servicenow.com/success. It's our customer success center, where we have solutions, white papers, customer testimonials about things that they were able to do. There's a lot to explore in there to help you succeed. Because if you succeed with ServiceNow, we all succeed, right? I think that's fair assessment there. So go check it out at servicenow.com/success. And also, if you want to continue that success a little bit further, and maybe you're a developer looking to develop some stuff, not necessarily with code, maybe a little bit without code. There's a whole mix of stuff here at developer.servicenow.com. If you remember, I think in our last episode, we talked about some of the, I'm sorry, my mind clue me in check. We talked about, I'm sorry?
Content?
Yeah, some of the content. Anyway, go over to developer.servicenow for content on, you can get a free developer instance. There's free learning plans there, script APIs, information about how to talk from the client or the server side. All in ServiceNow, there's information on developer meetups, and there's videos, all kinds of stuff over there. Go help yourself and eat all you can. So that's at developer.servicenow.com. And now I'll turn it over to Chuck.
The one bullet that's missing from that slide is early access. So if you already got a personal developer instance, you've got access to New York before other people, and that will be true for Orlando and forward releases as well.
Which is good, because today we're talking about the features in New York, so you can go over and check them out today, as a matter of fact.
It's a bit like any other software upgrade. Sometimes you don't know what you got until somebody tells you, and you go, oh, I could use that today. So that's what we're here to tell you about. Just a reminder that New York is going to be in general availability on the 5th of September. So look forward to that. Let's dig into it. Man, I got a lot of stuff to cover here. This is a big list. There are a lot of features coming out in New York, and we're very excited about the capabilities and enhancements to existing capabilities that deliver on our promise of allowing anyone to build enterprise workflows fast. This is most of what we have to cover today, but I did include a few others that just didn't seem to have room on this list, to be honest, without making the font terribly small. So you'll see a couple of surprises in there. I'm not going to read your bullet list this time, so let's move on. To get started, our mobile app has changed. We now have two mobile apps, one called ServiceNow Mobile Agent and one called ServiceNow Mobile. So the mobile one is intended for your employees. The agent one obviously has been around since Madrid, and that's our agent experience. As a developer, you want to be aware that a few things have changed on the back end. The table structure has changed to enable more capabilities. Just from these screenshots, you can say, hey, there's those buttons, those pills at the bottom, and there's a menu at the bottom. That's new. So you'll have to know how to navigate around that. We don't have the detailed technical content in this webinar, but look for other content that will have that. We've got things like global search, the search up top where you see, hello, Megan, will search by default for service catalog items and knowledge base articles and employees. I mean, it really is. We've been using this in ServiceNow for a while, and it really has made a huge impact. We're reserving conference rooms, and we're doing virtual agent chat that's built in. I'll get more into that in a little bit. I'm solving problems without even having to reach out to IT or even get on a laptop these days. It's really, really handy, and it will change the way that your employees work. So look for that as a huge update to mobile in New York. The other bright, shiny object we've got is Guided App Creator. And this takes you through the application building process. I actually started my latest app a few weeks ago using Guided App Creator. It is a step-by-step guided process because people who are new to the platform, maybe some of these no-coders, the builders, don't know everything they need to know about what tables and when should I put in security and how do I do mobile. This is quite literally click, 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 and you've got the framework for not only your tables, but security. For a mobile app, if you want it, it's optional. You can choose it or not choose it. You can build your own workspace, like Agent Workspace, for your custom app, or add one onto an existing app that you've got. Very, very powerful stuff, as well as the classic UI. I don't want to forget about good old forms and lists. They're all available there. Very easy. We will be doing a deeper dive into this in a couple of months. So in a couple of episodes, I think this is 67, so look for around episode 69, we will have a Guided App Creator deep dive. Import spreadsheets and turn those spreadsheets into tables and columns automatically with the imported data. It's not just, hey, import it into an existing table. It will make the table and columns for you. How cool is that? So very, very accelerated way of doing things. Let's talk Flow Designer. Flow Designer has been around since, Kingston? And that's now, 2 years, 2.5, a year and a half, whatever it was. It's going so fast. I did
about a year and a half.
Fingers. So it's been out. We've got some more stuff. We've got built-in domain separation, which I'll go through a bullet list in just a little bit. We've got support for direct data transformation. Lots of stuff. This is the top-level slide. I'm going to dive in even deeper to some of these technical things that I want you to know about. So as I mentioned, domain separation. I am not a domain separation specialist, so take a screenshot now because I'm not going to read all these things and we're not going to dwell on them long enough for you to read them. But lots of new capabilities, and I can hear a resounding roar of thunderous applause from our managed service providers, or MSPs, and our large organizations that need domain separation. This has been a long time coming. So look forward to that. We now have the ability to do inline scripts. When you go into the configuration for a flow, there's a toggle switch in there that says show inline script toggle. And I'll show you what that looks like in the next slide. You do need a role to access this. It brings up a little function box, but the point of this is to reduce the number of, let's call them one-off actions that you built. When I did a demo last year, I had to build an action just to increment an integer field. There's no basic math out of the box, but I built one. And I could have done this in a function just by going, okay, go get the data pill, add one to it, and return the result. Ooh, that was hard. So you don't need to be building all these specialty actions. If you've built them, you can still use them. But this is sort of the exception case carrier, or you need to call some script include function that's already been built. To use them, as I mentioned, once you turn that on and you have the proper roles, you see this little F of X button right next to the data pill picker. You click that, and up comes the script box. You access the data through, it's fully commented in there. You want to get your hands on the trigger short description. It's FD under data, which is flow designer data, .trigger, which is your trigger record, .current, .short description, that kind of thing. You must remember to do a return. If you don't return, nothing gets put into that field. So just a little caveat. I've done it. It's embarrassing. It's frustrating. It's just like when you forget your gr.query after writing out this beautiful add query and a while next and you realize nothing's working. It does have IntelliSense built into it for the objects that are available to you. So you can see somebody started typing FD under data.trigger and it goes, hey, what part of that do you want to use? Because I got 3 data pills that are available in the trigger record. Cool. So you can save a lot of time doing that as well. If you use one and then you collapse it, this is how it displays where you see in the message, this is just a simple log message window, but it will say, hey, there's a script that's going to put in the field here. So don't drop any data pills. It's now a read-only field. Don't put anything hard-coded in here. It's being done by the script. And if you turn the script off and go back to using a data pill or something, your script is still there. It's just not used. So if you decide to come back later and use it, it's still available. It hasn't cleared that field value, which is very nice because sometimes you want to come back and go, I think I'd rather go back to script mode. We've also added the ability, we talked about this on Live Coding Happy Hour a few weeks ago, inbound email trigger, and I absolutely love this. I had a chance to use it in one of my latest apps. It is so much easier than doing an inbound email script action that you just say, hey, trigger it off of an inbound email and you've got a lot of actions. But there are a few things you want to be aware of. I'll get to some of the more esoteric ones at the end, but obviously you've got access to the subject, the body, the user record that's available from that trigger. The trigger is the email message. So if you picture the things that you've got available on an email message, drag them off in data pills. Already way better than scripting. So you could say, let's go create a record.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
this is fantastic. This is so wicked cool. I didn't even know this was on the roadmap. So I'm happy to have it. It will also handle attachments. So when you need to do attachments, it's not automatically going to move those attachments to your target record like the scripted action does. So be aware of that you now have ultimate flexibility and ultimate control, but you have to remember to do that control. So you have access to that, and you can even do it conditionally, as I'll show you in a little bit. But maybe you don't want every record, or you don't want that email. This example is how to set the email, attach the email to the record, put it in the activity history, whatever. You may not want that in all cases, but you need to do that if you want to do that. It's not automatically done. There's the moving attachments. The caption threw me off, but This one actually has an action to move email attachments to the record. Hey, go get the record. Here's the attachment. Pretty straightforward. And it will move all attachments. If you have inline attachments, let's say somebody's email signature has their company logo, you can choose to use that or not based on, you can see the condition here. It says, if email attachment record is content disposition, the content disposition says, is this inline or is it actually attached to the email? So there's a way we can detect that and say, you know what, forget the inline ones. We don't want people's signatures. We just want the Word document or the PDF or whatever they attach to this thing. So we've got the intelligence that you can put in there to your flow to say, you know what, don't take all attachments. Go through this for each and say, filter out the inline ones. That's pretty nice. We can get our hands on the email header information. If there's something in the header you want to know about, for example, this one says, is it X ServiceNow generated? You can get that. Go get the value of that and use that in a data pill somewhere else. Very easy to use. You may have special ones in your organizations or from applications that you want to identify and treat them differently than you would another message. So very easy to do. So cool doing that. When you want to test them, you test them on existing emails. So an email that's already come in. It's not going to sit there and make you type the RFC 822 header and body and, oh, where do I get the attachment? Good luck typing that in MIME. No, use an existing one that you can use. Yeah, that's already in the sys_email table. So lots and lots of great information there. We have a new API. We introduced this, I think it was in the last release, where we have a scripting API for the Flow API. And we've added some new methods for the non-blocking and the blocking. These are called the quick methods. Now, the advantage is, implied by the name, it's quick. It's quicker. So you may want to use this if you have performance issues. Now, the caveat is that the names are just the same and the parameters are just the same as the previous Flow API. You just add the word quick on there. And same thing with the blocking. Blocking has a timeout. Timeout delays defaults to 30 seconds based on that property. So you get the idea. The caveat is they don't create a context. So you want to debug them first using the non-quick version, the standard Flow API methods. And then if you need them, you can opt to use this. It's sort of a set it and forget it, fire and forget, whatever you want to call it, that runs to make sure that you're getting the reason it's fast is because it's not maintaining that execution context. So debugging is now difficult, if not theoretically very difficult. I won't say impossible because I'm sure there's somewhere you can debug somehow. We've also got a new data type called complex objects. When you're creating your inputs to an action or something like that, you'll see these around. They're sort of nested. Go, wow, this is a JSON object. We are now treating JSON objects as first-class data types. So you can create, say, a contact, an employee that has rich data behind it. It doesn't necessarily need to be the same fields as a glide record. In fact, it could be a combination of different things from your flow. And say, go get this input from this field. Go get this input from this data pill. Go get this from this result of a scripted output. It can be anything you want, and you can nest these as deep as you want. Very logical way to pass complex information in and out of actions. You'll see these a little bit more when we start talking about Integration Hub, which I think, not quite yet, complex objects, you can do dot walking. So if you need to get into a user's, manager's, locations, department head, whatever, you can do very easy. And you can get to them, I believe, through scripts as well. So you can templatize these things. So if you want to use them over and over, maybe you've got something that's being used as the input on one place and then an output in another place. You can create a template for them to do that. Now, keep in mind that the template is almost like an email template. It's a copy of that information or a template for a record. When you create your template and say, I've got these 5 fields, whatever flows or actions that use that complex object are going to have 5 fields. If you come back later and add a 6th field, only the ones going forward are going to have that 6th field. So keep that in mind. It's not retroactive. It's not going to change the way that existing flows behave. The template is a copy. The new complex data type is a copy of that complex data type template. So just wanted to point that out as an FYI. We are talking to developers, admins, and builders here, so you want to know about that. We also have this thing called dynamic inputs. Took me a while to wrap my head around this one, so why this is useful. Don't really pay any attention to the JSON on the left-hand side. That's just basically how it's stored. But what this gives you is a way to dynamically pull up data, particularly from third-party systems. I like to think of this as when you're going to build a business rule, a scriptless business rule, for example. Once you select the table, ServiceNow goes out and gets the fields that are relevant to that table, because you can't pick fields in the condition builder until you select a table. Same thing with UI policies, same thing with pretty much anything that has a table and a condition field. Think of it that way in Flow Designer. Now, extend that to a third-party system. In this case, there's a little difficult to read, but this is a JIRA action. And we're going out and setting the project type or the problem type, the subtype, whatever it is. By picking those two fields on top, it says, oh, now it's time to run a field. Maybe it's the problem type or the associated field. It reaches out dynamically and says, got 'em. Now I've got a drop-down list for you. Hugely powerful because you don't need to make as many custom actions anymore using dynamic inputs. That's the big win for this one, is less development, more flexibility, and pretty much transparent to the people that are dropping these into their flows. We've also added what some systems call an upsert. This is an update and or insert, depending on what the action is. So it's labeled as create or update record. The upsert was my annotation. You can see from the screenshot, upsert isn't actually in that. So depending on what fields you check, see the check marks off to the right, that's what it uses to determine uniqueness, to say, is it time to update or is it time to insert, much like a coalesce on an import set. So as your flow is running along and you say, hey, here's some user data, go figure out if this user already exists. What a huge time savings. I can't tell you how many times I've written script to say, does the record exist? If it doesn't, let's do this. If not, let's do that. And some people may argue, well, the update method on the glide record actually does an insert if the record doesn't exist. I don't always want to do an insert. I need to determine what that uniqueness is, and it gets a little hanky sometimes. This is a much easier way to do it, and oh my gosh, to do it in Flow Designer, what a blessing this will be to those of you that are doing that. All right. Couple of important notes before we go on to Integration Hub. The Quick API is not compatible with all flows and actions. So do your homework, do some checking, do some testing if you find out that it's not there. And a reminder that there's no context created, so it is a fire and forget, which makes it trickier to debug. Notification triggers. I was going to mention this earlier, but I wanted to get through it. Notifications, they happen in Flow Designer before the scripted ones. So be aware of that. If you've got scripted actions, they'll still take over after you realize Flow Designer hasn't done anything. Now, they do not, and just a reminder, they do not do those implicit things like the script action does of attaching the email to the record and attaching the attachments to the record. You are in charge. Excuse me, you have the control over that, and by default, there's a flag. Excuse me. Should have muted for that one.
Getting all choked up about this.
Yeah, this is a great feature. I love this.
I am just so excited.
It will stop processing as soon as it does that flow, as soon as that trigger is recognized and saying, hey, this is a new incident, or this is a new customer record, whatever your email is triggering. So it will stop processing. It's a rare circumstance where you turn this off and say, no, continue processing. So just keep that in mind. We turned that on by default. Other than that, I love these things. Let's do a real quick check. What do we have for questions?
I don't know about Max. I got two questions. One was about the email notifications flow trigger. It says, you said the trigger is the email message. Someone asked, can the trigger be the email subject or sender, which I assume you could do some ifs, but I don't know about making
No, well, you can put conditions in there. It says, here comes an email, and you do the conditions based on it. So just like the scripting did, it said, don't run unless this condition is true. So, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, and this has to do with the inline scripts. Can conditional encoded queries be used in the inline scripts?
Yes, whatever server-side code you've got can be run in there. I called the script include out to YouTube. It was a little bizarre, but you can do that.
I have a question that's been asked twice. Does Flow Designer support orchestration?
Does Flow Designer what? I didn't quite catch that.
Support orchestration. Someone's asked about trigger.
There's really two different products.
This sounds like an SAT question, but it's workflow is to orchestration as Flow Designer is to Integration Hub. So you can call flows from workflow. There is an API that we introduced in Madrid that allows you to do that. I'm sorry, the other way around. You can call workflows from Flow Designer. So you can do that. And I guess with the Flow API, you could also do it the other way around. So orchestration is meant to be triggered from workflow, if that answers that question. So if you really wanted, you could start a Flow Designer flow that triggers a workflow that runs your orchestration. So in a sense, yes.
Okay.
All right.
And then one final question.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, go for it. This final question is, someone asked about the quick API timeouts. Does it consume space on the API queue, or are they held elsewhere?
I would have to check on that. So leave that one blank in our queue, and we'll get back to that one after the show. Cool. Let's get into Integration Hub. Lots of new stuff in Integration Hub here as well. Wow, we are going to have to hustle because we're making time, but there's still a lot left to go. If you're not familiar with Integration Hub is used primarily in Flow Designer to trigger those third-party applications. It is a licensed product, so talk to your account team, understand what you need and where it comes from, and depending on when you bought it, if it was post-March 2019, you may be able to turn on what we call the starter pack and be able to play around with some of these things, get some of these built-in out-of-box capabilities for you. So we have a lot of stuff to cover in Integration Hub. First, my favorite new Integration Hub feature, being able to test an action. You no longer have to create these dummy flows to put a new action on and say, did my action work? You can test it right from here, enter the inputs, and away you go. It's so awesome. And if you didn't notice, there's also an executions button, which works just like the one in Flow Designer. So you can see that execution context to know, hey, if it didn't work in your test, what happened, why, what were the results? Very similar output with the data pills and the actual values and the sysids and error messages. Very, very useful. So developing new actions should be much, much quicker going forward from New York. All right. We have also added for your REST APIs, I believe this is applicable to SOAP as well, HTTP retry policies. So you define these in the retry policy table. There's a series of conditions. So you can say if the status code is not 200 or 201, then we may want to do a retry. Or if it's a 400 or a 429 or what's that one, like a 5-something that says I'm a teapot. I can't remember the number off the top of my head. There is an actual HTTP status code. Max and I have a mutual acquaintance that told me about this, and I just can't. I can't get that out of my head whenever I think of HTTP status codes. I still want to use it at some point in some app. But anyway, sideline there. You define your conditions, and then you define the retry strategy, whether it's going to be a count, whether it's going to be a retry interval, whatever it happens to be. These are the policies that you then apply to your connection and credential aliases. So default HTTP is available out of the box, so you don't need to worry about building that. It makes a great example. If you wanted to build one for whatever particular service or services or class of protocol, you can define and divide these however you want. So you put it on the connection and credential aliases, and then when you get to the REST step, it's going to come across with the connection alias, or you can go to the bottom of the form and override it. You check the box that says, nope, I'm going to override that. I'm going to use something different than the one that's connected to this connection alias. It may be using default HTTP policy, and I am going to use my super duper chuck retry policy, whatever it is. So very handy for those. You don't have to sit there and do a do while loop on these things anymore. Go, try it again, try it again, try it again. Okay, that's 5 tries. Let's give up. Yeah, and you may be experiencing different levels of timeout that could throw your do while loop off. So very, very handy if you want to do that. We've added a JDBC step. So again, parity with orchestration. So less and less need for that person who asked the question about that to use orchestration, because you can now do your JDBC queries. Does support mid-server, so important to note that. We've also added a test button when you open up that JDBC step and you're entering the information with the connection details, the SQL query. Of course, you can drag the data pills in there to help define your SQL query. And there is a test step button to make sure, does the connection work, and am I getting some basic info back from the query? Of course, you can always use the test step on the top of the test action as well. The data comes back as a complex object. Remember that? Here it is, just like that. You now no longer have to parse some JSON or XML payload all by yourself, hoping you got the XPath or the JSON notation correct. Very easy to do. And I'm going to be getting more into the XML parser in just a sec. We've added an SSH step, so you can now run your Linux and Unix commands from Flow Designer, and it is mid-server supported, as you can see from that little green tag. Very easy to use. I've done this several times since it came out. Love it. I suspect Craig is going to be using this an awful lot in Cloud Labs, correct?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Yes, probably so.
So much easier. So much easier.
Yeah.
And an XML parser step. If you're like me, and given the choice between XML and JSON, I usually run for JSON every time. It's just easier for me to incorporate in my head. But XML does have some benefits. And if your third-party service only returns XML, have we got a treat for you. You can now see this in a structured mode. You can quite literally take a sample payload, paste this in, and it goes, oh, this looks like an array of blah, blah, blah with so many properties in it and attributes on those properties. And it will divine the XPath out for you. Very, very easy to now work with that without having to go into some third-party format or tell me what the path is. It's built right in. The wait action previously only had a timer on it. We now have a percentage available, much like you use the timer in the old workflow. The example out-of-box SLA says, wait 50% of the time and send them an email. Wait another 25% and send them an email. Wait another 25%, which adds up to 100, and send an email to them and their manager that their SLA is now breached. You can build that exact same scenario in Flow Designer because we now have a percentage time. So in the time field, you could put data pill, you could put a date time, that kind of thing. So an example there on the screen is wait 50% of the time until this date. And again, your date could be variable. This is another one that I'm excited to try. It's called the data stream action, and it's used for those cases where you've got very large payloads that may be paginated. In fact, if they are paginated, I very much encourage you to do this, and you're updating it on a regular basis. Hey, every night go out and get all my users. Or in my case, every 6 hours, go and get a whole bunch of information from YouTube. Well, YouTube, you can only get like 50 records at a time. Whatever your case may be, you can now do this by adding on some pre-processing to maybe set up what is the next page key. You can do pagination in there very easily. It does require, this is part of Integration Hub still, so I believe this is a separate plugin. I have to go back and check. I turned it on, but I don't remember how I turned it on. I think it was a separate plugin to get that data stream action. When you go to the Flow Designer and you say, do you want a new flow, subflow, whatever you can see from the menu there, data stream action is one of those, and then your trigger is a scheduled thing. And it will go out and get you a whole bunch of records to which you can parse through them in the for each loop. Very, very easy. Lots of options, and I'm still getting my head around a use case that I want to apply it to. So when I get that, I will share it, but I'm looking forward to that one. This one, if I had to pick a favorite out of all the things in New York, I know this is a bit nerdy, but OpenAPI, formerly known as Swagger, allows you to quickly build these new APIs. So Swagger 2.0, it's now OpenAPI 3.0. What you can do is go to a service like YouTube, AWS, Google, who have these sometimes inconsistent and often very tricky APIs. Sometimes the APIs don't make sense. They're inconsistent. They return different payloads. They need different query parameters. It gets really wacky sometimes. And you can go get their OpenAPI info. I believe it's YAML format, but you'll have to check me on that. You copy and paste it in here, and it goes, great. I now have 64 different methods you can use. And when you select, like from YouTube, get video statistics, it will tell you, you need to supply these parameters in your action. Like, wow, how awesome is that? So much faster.
Yeah.
It tells you what the header
time saver.
Oh my gosh, it takes me probably an hour to build just one of these methods, and it's scripted and specialized, and it's fairly brittle.
Hey, and that's if it's well documented to begin with. So,
yeah.
To not waste your time, but this is huge.
As far as the time saver, this one wins for my favorite, because you can go to AWS and say, hey, I need the EC2 OpenAPI. Boom. You now know how to manage your EC2 instances. And even cooler, if you don't have some of these folks, you can turn on a switch and see what's available in the store. So you get this list that shows up like kind of hard to read, but you've got your main ones. I look for Flow, and it says, here's ServiceNow Core. It has some Flow. Microsoft Azure AD has Flow. Oh, but you know what? There's this other section on the action picker that says, not installed spokes. You hover over one of them, and it will tell you the description with a link to the store so you can go and install it. So not only are we leveraging the ability to install from Flow Designer that we just introduced, but we add these store capabilities that are out there. And even better is the store. I might be jumping ahead a slide. I can't really see the preview all that well. But we are doing out-of-band releases, which means you don't have to wait for Orlando to get the next set of spokes for Integration Hub. For example, Jira or DocuSign or Box or whatever it is you're looking for, we're coming out with these, so we've got these ready-built integrations for you. As of this date, I believe the count is somewhere in the teens in terms of number of spokes you can get from the store. Within, I think by the end of the year, we're heading for the 30s, and then by Orlando, it'll be in the 40s. So every month, we've got a new release of these. I called up one of my buddies in product management, and I said, hey, do we have an integration for X? Because I'm thinking of building one. The API changed a few months ago. I haven't got around to it. He says, don't bother. We're going to have a spoke in October. I said, good. I don't have to do my work. You're doing it for me. And
you can just sit back and put your hands behind your head and relax.
It will be supported. It will be easy to use. I don't have to think about the API or the input parameters. Yeah, I'm going to sit back and drink coffee till October? Probably not. Oh, my.
Considering how much coffee you drink. Yeah.
I'm going to rip through the next few slides pretty quickly. I know a lot of the focus was around Integration Hub and Focus and Flow Designer. So ATF, we've got some new capabilities in there. Obviously, ATF helps you speed up your upgrades, speed up your testing. It is very, very quick. For New York, we've got we've got parallel testing, which allows you to do tests in parallel, and it will detect conflicts. So if two tests are trying to work on the same record, it will put one on pause. It is not chargeable, so ATF comes with the platform. If you watched our presentation at the end of July, you'll know more about ATF. We've added more out-of-box quick start tests for that. We've got predictive intelligence. In a nutshell, this allows your agents to get work done even quicker. It used to be called agent intelligence, but we've expanded it beyond just the agents. We're going out further. So it's been renamed to really encompass more of where we plan to go with the intelligence part of it. This is, for example, when we use it with agents, they type in a short description and it goes, hey, you know what, we got knowledge base articles that might cover that. So get work done much, much quicker. Performance analytics has had some updates as well. We've got more consistency across the widgets. If you've looked at performance analytics in the past, we've got, I'm trying to remember what else is out there. A few more visualizations. So we've got Spotlight, which now works across domains. So for those performance analytics customers, lots of good stuff in there. Virtual Agent has one of the coolest new features. I've been looking forward to this since we announced Virtual Agent about a year ago, and that is that it's got what we call intent comprehension. You define natural language understanding models. So instead of being triggered off of a keyword, you can give it a phrase, and it will say, well, based on that phrase, I'm pretty sure what you mean is this. The example we used in Santa Clara a couple of weeks ago was Pat Casey said, how do I get a visitor on the guest Wi-Fi here? And it just served up a knowledge base article. So he talked to his phone, and up came an answer. Very cool stuff. You can define those models. If you saw the keynote at the platform keynote that Joe Davis and Wendy Lee did, they were building a llama farm, and they said, I want to associate the phrase, I want to buy my son a cria. A cria is a baby llama. They already had llama as an entity. So the model builder looks like this. It's a little tough to see here, but it uses the natural language model builder to take intents, which are the verbs, and entities, which are the nouns, and be able to associate that stuff. So even if you said, I want to build my son a cria, you associate cria with llama, and it goes, oh, that's a llama. I know what to do with that. It's very easy. And then you get almost like the, what was it that, I can't remember, but you get a confidence rating on how closely it related to that. Virtual Agent is also now built, it connects with Facebook, should mention that. So Facebook Messenger, you can do that. And you have reusable content blocks, so you don't have to keep defining these pieces over and over. And, like I mentioned earlier, it's built into mobile. So the native mobile app now has a virtual agent capability in it. You can launch that with Siri shortcuts. I hope nobody's playing this on their computer speakers, but you could say, hey, Siri, launch ServiceNow, and it could bring up virtual agent for you, or whatever phrase you want to define for that. Even
hey, Chuck,
better, yeah.
I'm sorry, real quick. Virtual agent, does it allow different languages that you know? As
far as I know, yes. Yes, it is multilingual capable.
Okay.
I'd have to check on the model builder and what and that kind of thing. But if you had the intent, I suspect if you gave it enough phrases, you could do that. I'll check on that.
Okay.
Virtual Agent Designer is now part of Studio, so you don't have to go to the collaboration menu option to launch that. It's available right within there. You want to keep you in Studio, do all your good work. We've got just about 10 minutes left, so I would want to keep hustling through these. Don't mean to overlook the questions. We've got integration with IBM Watson, so if you have Watson, you can point Virtual Agent or some of these other artificial intelligence, machine learning capabilities at Watson and use that rather than the ServiceNow platform stuff seamlessly. As far as email attachments go, we've added a new table called sys email attachment. This isn't an extension of sys attachment. It's more of a metadata or a log to find out where you went. So in this case, somebody sends you an email and it's got some attachments, either directly or in line, and it logs each one of those. It goes, okay, I got them. I see them. I put them in your record. I did whatever you wanted me to. The second time it comes around, it goes, hey, wait a minute, I've seen these before. It uses a hash and says, I'm not going to put them in there. It's the same LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter icon. I'm not going to clutter up your records history with all of that information. So never mind about that. It comes in, it says it sees them that they're the same. So you get what you get only once. So to help keep the record from getting cluttered by the same repetitive information, we've added that. That's one of the things it does. You can also use it for debugging. Like, hey, what happened to my attachments? Oh, they were ignored. We talked about the email client back in June. If you haven't seen that, go back and look. I'm happy to say that we now have conditions on quick messages. I was really looking forward to that, and I really wanted to tell you about it in June. You go, hey, it's coming in New York. But this allows you to make those quick messages deterministic on a table and or condition. We also can inject the field name variables into the quick messages as well. In terms of the quick messages, you can put a current user as one of those variables and .walk into it, so you can get their display name or their email address or whatever you want. Now you can have customized signatures in your quick messages based on who sent that. Pretty darn cool.
Yeah.
We've got attachment handling, how the email client, remember that pop-up window that we talked about in June, the email client pop-up window, what do you do with attachments that are in there? Do you want to attach them to the record or not? Or you've got choices, and you can do that conditionally as well to say, only put this in there if it's in line, similar to what we did in Flow Designer. Let's get to the Pro Dev tools. This is for the deeper, geekier people who like to write code. The script editor has some nice enhancements that I've been looking forward to for a while. First of all, it will recognize, IntelliSense will recognize HTML and jelly tags. Not something you probably use every day, but when you do, you're really glad they're there. We also have, when you put up a class, like you say, hey, give me a new Glide Ajax or a new Glide Record or a new customer object out of my script include. It will bold that, and you can right-click on that. So if it's something ServiceNow came out with, you can show the documentation. It'll take you to the docs page on Glide Ajax in this case. If it's a script include, it will take you to that script include so you can learn the API. What are the methods? What can I do with this? What are the parameters? Very easy to do. So you're not looking at these foreign things going, oh my gosh, where is that? What is it? I don't even know. We've incorporated ESLint. So unlike its predecessor, ESLint allows you to have more built-in rules and define your own. The property for that is right there, glide.ui.syntax under editor.linter.eslint. Just look for ESLint under config. You'll find it. You can see what you can do with it. It is a global variable, so be aware if you change a global property, If you change it, you get that. But that's what brings up your warnings on the side. If there's something in your organization that you absolutely must do, go ahead and define that. The session log is now part of the debugger window. I absolutely love this because previously when you said, hey, let's debug business rules, it showed up at the bottoms of standard UI lists and forms. Now, you could do something like debug a service portal widget, which may trigger business rules or other things. You could debug anything you want. It will show up in a separate pop-out window like the debugger, because it's part of the debugger. You can do filtering on, hey, just show me different types. Do you want to see errors? Do you see warnings? What is it you want to see? And very, very easy to see that within the I don't know what you call this now. It's not the script debugger window, and it's not the debug window. It's in the session logs, much easier. I keep forgetting it's there until I need it go. I really need to see what I'm doing a service portal project right now. Very easy. We've got conditional breakpoints. So if you are setting breakpoints in the debugger, you can make them conditional. Everybody who's done debugging and setting breakpoints goes, hooray! And all of those things that I just told you about the Pro Dev tools are, of course, part of the platform, no charge. Another thing we've got is instance data replication. Now, instance data replication is not cloning. You can replicate data between two or more ServiceNow instances at the table level. So I set up maybe a prod instance to replicate my customer data and say, you are the provider. This is all completely configurable. It's no code to do IDR. And then the other instances say, I would like to subscribe. I want to be a consumer. And optionally, if there are changes on those consumers, you can push them back to a provider. I have a use case that I want to try for this. It is not a replacement for cloning. So don't think that you're going to do away with cloning. It's meant for more surgical, precise data replication. We use this internally, so when you enter an incident on high and it gets turned into a problem, the problem gets replicated to our DevOps system as a defect. And then when the defect is addressed, maybe it's remediated, maybe it's canceled, hopefully not, but that gets back into the problem. So we've got this bidirectional integration. We're not trying to come up with REST APIs between ServiceNow instances. So keep that in mind as a potential way of replicating that information. Very, very handy. IDR is easy to configure. So there's my note about no replacement for cloning. We've introduced instance key management, so you can own your own keys, revoke, And in the future, aka more than likely Orlando, sorry I didn't have a safe harbor statement, but let's pretend we saw one on this, you'll be able to do the complete lifecycle management for archiving, rotating, and destruction of keys. So until recently, most providers had the keys, including ServiceNow. Now you have control of the keys, so if you want to shut down access to your data, you just turn off that key. We've also got another I've got a footnote on this, but remote tables. This is a great way to reach out to another service. Maybe it's Microsoft Dynamics, maybe it's a stock market ticker, maybe it's the current weather, something you want that you don't necessarily want to store on your instance. Maybe it's for privacy reasons, for HIPAA or PII. You can display that and treat it as an actual table in reports, in Service Portal, in anything else. It acts like a virtual table, but it's read-only information and it's not stored on the instance. Ooh, voodoo magic going on there. But you can set that up as a remote table. It is read-only information, so keep that in mind. It's not something you're going to bring back and manipulate and say, oh, let's do all this crazy stuff on my virtual table, because it's a mirrored copy. It's an image of what's on that remote system. So
I imagine that performance could be iffy depending on how you get to that remote data, right?
If I recall, it's cached. So once you access it once, it goes, oh, has this been changed? What's your policy? I have to look more into the details. But yes,
okay.
That concerned me as well. Like, what do you want to do? Every user who's hitting this thing is going to be retrieving the data? No, that would be a performance problem. So yes, we did take performance into consideration. I just don't have all the details of what you can configure. Maybe that would be an interesting webinar in the future.
Mm-hmm.
A few footnotes on this one. Service Portal, we've got agent chat integration to span an entire portal or multiple portals if you wish. And as users type, we're now providing suggestions to reduce the typing, kind of like reference fields. You start typing CHU and it goes, oh, I've got Chuck Tomasi, I've got Chuck Farley, I've got, chuck it out the window. BTB, we now have swim lanes, horizontal swim lanes. So along with the vertical stuff, you can put in horizontal swim lanes for the personas, whatever you want, and work in progress limiting. So you don't have to look at this work in progress column that is 565 cards long. You can say, cut it off at 10. If it's less than that, we'll get to it later. Guided Tour Designer, we have more support for custom UI pages, better precision on those call-out placements. We've got call-out themes. So a lot of people have been asking, can you set the background to something else? Yes, you can now. You can launch a tour via a UI action or conditions or pages. So a little better control of when you launch that tour. And where metric base is concerned, you can create models to not only track this stuff, but detect and act on predefined anomalies. So lots of stuff coming out in those. We've enhanced so much stuff. That brings us to the end. I am going to give you a quick wrap-up. Don't forget, all this information is available. The New York pages are available on DocSite at docs.servicenow.com. Community, if you've got questions, lots of answers there. The developer site, as we mentioned, go get a personal developer instance today. Try a New York instance. If you can't find one, if it says they're unavailable, get a Madrid and upgrade it. It takes about an hour and you've got yourself a New York instance. So don't be scared away if it goes, there's none available because everyone went rushing for it. We want you to upgrade those things. Test this out in a very safe sandbox environment. Previous webinars, I mentioned ATF, I mentioned email client in June and July. Those are all available at that link you see there, the bit.ly link. It's also available if you're attending this live on the resource window. So just click that and away you go. And as Craig mentioned before, the Success Center. If we didn't get a chance, I know Craig and Max and Stacy have been behind the scenes furiously answering these questions. If we didn't get to them in this show, apologize. We had a lot of material to cover. However, we will be answering those, and when we get them all done, probably take a few days, give us some time. Your patience is appreciated. We will post those to the community, and you will get an email with a link directly to that. So if we want to continue the dialogue, we can do that on the community. Appreciate it very much. So with about 60 seconds, do we have a recurring theme available that has come up as a question? Who wants to arm wrestle that?
I see a lot.
Many.
Go ahead, Max. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Greg.
I just see a lot of stuff asking about IDR, about, I guess, can you do bidirectional?
Yes. And IDR does require Integration Hub because it is using transactions. So keep that in mind as well. There are a couple of things that look like they're not using Integration Hub directly, but they are using that transaction model. So understand that there may be licensing implications in there. Yeah, bidirectional, yes.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, I know you said on some conditions you can push some stuff back up, but I don't know if they were asking just bidirectional, which I don't know. And then we're also asking about remote tables. I guess an Excel spreadsheet. Can you make that a remote table? I don't know how you would do that. You'd have to hook it up to ODBC somewhere and make it available online.
It would have to, I believe it's accessed through REST. So unless you can get your spreadsheet through SharePoint via REST or something crazy, I don't know the intricacies of the way Microsoft can publish information. Possibly, but doesn't sound like the most sane approach, but you could certainly try.
Oh, is IDR, is that an additional cost or is that like included in the platform?
IDR is an add-on. Yeah.
An add-on, okay. All right.
That's it. There's a couple of questions around the inbound email actions and then attachments. Can you block attachments or create templates with attachments?
Can you make a template with an attachment? I'd have to check.
I imagine that's the email client.
Before. Yeah, for the email.
Yeah, the inbound email client. Yeah.
Oh, well, there's the inbound email actions in Flow and Script, but there's the email client, which is what you click and pop up to send something out. So if you're sending something out, you could disable attachments there. I believe attachments is an optional field. I have to go back and check. But for incoming, well, heck, use Flow Designer and just don't deal with the attachments. So I hope that answered that because I tried to attack both incoming and outgoing. All right, we have run out of time. I appreciate it. Thank you for all the help, Max. Thank you, Craig. And
my pleasure.
Casey's on mute, but still behind the scenes. We appreciate all the help in answering those questions. And we'll have this on-demand webinar. This one will take a little bit to get posted because of our release cycle. So you people that are watching, you got a sneak preview of what's coming. The big blowout is going to be in a couple of weeks. So hang tight for that. If you don't see it on the community or YouTube right away, if you missed it, you'll know why. We just have to play by the release cycle rules. Thank you very much once again. Until next time, wish you all the best and go create something cool. We got the tools for it now. Bye now.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.